For a country that claims to be number one in virtually every aspect of existence, we have a really crappy track record when it comes to treating workers like human beings. But fear not, there's projects going on all over the world where countries are experimenting with 4-day work weeks. Now, this has been going on for a few years at this point. Most recently, it was Spain who decided to jump on board with the 4-day work week project. They decided to experiment with a 32-hour work week. You have other countries around the world, like for instance Germany. The average work week with some areas, like I believe it was one unionized company that got a 27-hour work week. The average work week, or maybe it was a 28. I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. I'm getting to the next one with that. The 27 applies to Norway. The average work week of Norway is 27 hours. It's 33 hours in Sweden. Okay, and it's around the same 33, 35 hours in Denmark. And then you have a 4-day work week that's been in the works for a long time, I believe since 2015, in Iceland. So that's kind of normal to them at this point. New Zealand has been experimenting with a 4-day work week. Japan, who we like to lambast as being workaholics. But guess what? The U.S. works way more hours than Japan. I know, right? The only other one who works more than Japan that comes close to the U.S. is South Korea. They might want to think about the 4-day work week there as well, you know. I mean, what would you do? What would you do with all that free time if you had it? 4-day work week, come on. Who out there can say that they didn't enjoy having extra time off? Everyone in America, almost everybody in America, you know, I don't want to be too general here, but most working class people, they look forward to that time off that they get when they do get it. Like the company I work for example, they offer some pretty decent vacation time and time off, all things considered, you know. Whereas in other countries, it's paid time off and vacation time by law. We don't have that in this country. Papua New Guinea is another country where paid time off is not a thing. But you have some companies like mine, it's the Home Depot, who will do the right thing, at least as far as they could do it. Give you time off, paid time off, vacation time, whatever. But what if you had a 4-day work week? Now, I personally am in favor of something like that, and I agree with Professor Richard Wolff in a sense here that because of technology, the way technology exists today, and because of how many people are out there who need work, and the competitive nature of our job market these days, makes it so that it would just benefit everybody all around if we had more people working fewer hours. So for instance, decades ago, you needed one person 8 hours to do a job, right? Well, nowadays, we're practically at the point where you could do an 8-hour job in like 2 hours. What's the point of keeping one person around 8 hours? That's one. What's the point of one person giving up 8 hours of their day, every day of their life almost, to do a job that only requires like, 2, maybe 3 to 4 hours of productivity in order to accomplish? What's the point of that? So I actually had a poll out that I'm going to get to in just a minute, but I really think it would benefit everybody as far as not only our physical health, but our mental health as well. If we just had a 4-day work week, we minimize the amount of hours we work, we get more people in the workforce, but they all work less hours. So I had this one poll. I didn't get too many responses, but I'm going to share with you a little bit of the information that I did get, and I'd like you to answer in the comments what you think about this as well. So the poll went, which would you rather have? A, 40 hours a week at $15 an hour. B, 60 to 80 hours a week at $7.25 an hour. C, 20 to 25 hours a week at $45 an hour. D, something else, please specify, or D, whatever. I have trouble getting that finger up. But most people, as you can maybe imagine, chose C. They would rather have 20 to 25 hours a week at $45 an hour. Now, numerically speaking, that gives you a lot more than you would any of the other arrangements. Not only that, but it also, you have that knowledge that you're making enough to survive and that you have a little extra to invest in whatever you want to do with your spare time. That leads to security. That leads to happiness. Now, they say, of course, money can't buy happiness. Well, there is a certain area where money does help with happiness because we live in a capitalist society, right? But that leads to the other thing. How do you control pricing in the certain areas? to make sure that employers and other capitalists who run these companies don't look at this and go, ooh, people got all this money, now we can price gouge them even more. Money, 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 profit. No, no. What you're doing at that point is you're just trying to keep society in the dumps. You're trying to keep it suppressed by raising prices whenever you see people having more money like that. So there are certain areas of society that have to be kept in check as far as price points. And that's where, if you get to places like Big Pharma, I say nationalize Big Pharma, 100%. And also nationalize the insurance industry. Because there's the perverse incentive in those systems is as such that you don't want to help people through a hard time or help them to pay for something that's overwhelmingly expensive otherwise. You want to create a customer, right? Well, what's the point of that, right? I mean, pharmaceuticals, insurance, it's meant to help you pay for something to get through something, not to keep you embedded in it. But anyway, the same applies really to this 40-hour work week, or in the case of the United States, anywhere between 60 to, not even 80, like 100 hours or more. You know, there was a case I heard about a year or two ago about a woman who died in her car because she was working literally 4 jobs, and she died from exhaustion. Like, she couldn't take it. Her body and mind just could not take the pressure anymore. So that's another reason. But come on, man. I agree with the C option myself, too. I mean, 20 to 25 hours a week at $45 an hour, what would you do with all that free time? What would you do? Answer, whatever the hell you want. Isn't that what brings happiness? Doing whatever you want? And here's the other part. That's why employers and the capital class, including the people in the media, people in Washington, and the donor class, of course, they don't want us in that position because they know that if we're happy, we're not dependent on their shitty arrangements that they push in front of us saying, you have no choice, now accept what we give you or you'll have nothing. That's power and dominance and control. That's what they're all about. What we're all about as working people is happiness, peace of mind, being able to live our lives comfortably so we have a little something to invest in our futures as well. They don't want that at the top. They want us dependent on the crumbs that they provide for us. And yet these are the same people who come at us saying, you know, this is the way the system works. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Not only do we hear that from the employer class, we also hear it from our elected officials, which is really stupid because it's like, hey, wait a minute. We elected you to serve us. And they're like, yeah, thanks for electing me. Now I'm just going to use your tax money to enrich myself. So quit your complaining and go pull yourself up by your bootstraps. What's the point of having an elected government if that's their attitude, right? Now, any form of democratic government is preferable to an authoritarian government. If we ended up in an authoritarian situation like we're progressing towards right now, well then we would be forced to work inhumane hours in inhumane conditions for crap wages, if any at all. That's how authoritarianism generally works. So that's why I say, man, we need to spread democracy in the workplace, and we could actually more easily achieve a 4-day work week this way. Because as worker co-ops, what we could do is say, okay, instead of 40 hours a week, anybody who comes here, they're not only going to be a stakeholder in the company, being an employee here and an owner as well, we're also going to only have between, oh, you do the math, whatever, 20, 25 hours, let's just say that. And the minimum wage is going to be starting at $45 an hour. All right? Well, what does that do for pricing? Well, because you're taking a more humanistic approach to the business model here, the pricing of the products isn't going to be as such that you want to maximize profits for one person at the top or a small group of shareholders. This is about helping a community. That's what co-ops are designed to do generally. Now, you could be a co-op. Let's be clear. You could be a co-op and be profit-driven and say, we're just going to increase prices for profit. Okay. But you also understand collectively that that means you're going to have to pay your workers more. Other companies are going to have to start paying their workers more. So there you go. I mean, that's the game. It's a very fluid system there. But if you approach it from a more democratic, cooperative standpoint, you see that the humane treatment of workers and consumers, let's be honest, consumers as well, is first and foremost. Treat human beings as human beings. Put safety first. You put their well-being first. Your profits are second. Because if you take care of them with good pay, you take care of them with great products and services that don't break after a few years so you force them to come back, well, look, they will be very happy with you, and they will be more than happy to do business with you at that point. And that said, it is very important to note that if you put in a 4-day work week where people are only working 20 to 25 hours a week, you could actually double the amount of people who work at your company. Now, numerically, what this would mean is, let's say you have, let's make it simple. Let's say you had 10 workers, okay? You're paying them 45 bucks an hour. They're only working 20 to 25 hours a week. But now you need 10 more workers, okay? Well, let's say you do that again, and you really kind of are pinched for money here because maybe sales aren't going as well as you had hoped. You're like, okay, well, we really can't afford to even give you a raise or even pay you 45 bucks an hour on its face because of the situation we're in now. Well, then you got to kind of work out a scenario where you have to kind of raise prices a little bit, but because you're looking at the human aspect first, you're not worried about just, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to afford my next yacht or in my next private island. You know, you're looking like, wait a minute here. We're not experiencing the sales we need, but we are seeing great productivity. Everybody loves our service, but they just don't need it as much. Well, this is where you get into other discussions. It's like, okay, what can we produce other than this? You know, what can we do other than this? Or might it be possible that we'll have to split the company up and kind of shrink the size of this one that's producing what everybody wants, but the sales aren't matching up? And this is where you can go to other parts where like, maybe we'd like to try something else. And they're like, okay, let's sit down and discuss this. And if we have to break off and you create your own company out of us, then so be it. You do something a little different. You're adding to a gap in society. You see how this works? It's a very fluid thing. And a 4-day work week would just make everybody that much happier, that much more productive, and more people coming into the fold through practices like this means you're not going to have this unemployment problem rather. Or even if you did, because more people have more money to spend, that means more taxes are going to be going into the local and state and even federal governments, which could fund a UBI if people don't want to work for somebody. And they're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to work for some douchebag or a collection of douchebags. I don't really care about them. I just want to do my own thing. I want to be independent. Okay. Well, then you get a UBI and you can do your own thing through that. Or if you do have to get a job and work enough, maybe you build up enough in a short amount of time compared to an entire lifetime to where you can actually do what you want. But, this all sounds great, right? I mean, at least I think it sounds great. But what would you do with all that free time? Once again, man, whatever the hell you want. That's happiness. Not being tied down. Not being a slave to a system. This is the system existing to serve you, to serve us. That's why I'm in favor of the 4-day work week. That's why I think we need to kind of take Professor Wolf's advice here and just double employment with half the hours. And again, you will have to kind of address the pay scale and how much you could actually employ compared to the pricing as you go along. But that's where you go to other areas of society, okay? Let's say you're making computers, and you make your computers for a certain price, but people are happy with them, but maybe they don't need them as much. So you're like, okay, well, maybe we can't really produce these computers much these days anymore because nobody's buying them anymore. They've got them, and maybe we could just create some of the parts to fix it up with in the meantime, or maybe we could go off and create this other item until the demand for computers starts up again, and then we're like, okay, let's kick back into gear here. Being able to adjust according to what your markets are saying, as far as what's wanted and what isn't, what's needed and what isn't, as far as products and services, that's important. And it helps you diversify your work experience as a worker. So you're not just stale and doing the whole damn thing and being so repetitive your whole life. I mean, that's just so boring, and it's just, it bogs you down. It makes you like, Trust me, I know. I've been there. So we need to start thinking about this in a more fluid, more organic way and stop trying to revolve our lives around a fixed way of existing all the time. And this goes to education as well, but that's a topic for another time. So there you go, guys. I mean, that's how I feel about it. Well, let me know what you think. Again, would you rather have A, 40 hours a week at $15 an hour, B, 60 to 80 hours a week at $7.25 an hour, C, 20 to 25 hours a week at $45 an hour, or D, something else? Please specify. Let me know in the comments. And I will talk to you guys again soon.